r/NoSleep. Posted by u/little_count_5076. The girl I see on my commute never leaves the train. Part 2. Why don't you have a seat? His voice was coarse, like someone constantly scratching his throat from the inside. I could only really see his smile, literally stretching around his face. He patted his bony fingers on the spot right next to him. I wasn't sure whether to listen to him or try to run, but I remembered what Zoe said. Since I see them, they can all see me. He knows my face, and he knows that I can see him. My lips were quivering, my goosebumps multiplying by the second. I never felt so cold in my life. I could have made a run for it, but he was on the outside of the train. Where could I run to that he couldn't find me? But then again, there were a few people around. Maybe he wouldn't attack in the middle of the day? Sit down, boy. Or I'll rip your soul clean from your husk of a body. I thought to run, but before I could move my feet, I found myself obeying him. His finger reached out, and with a single flick towards him, I was shoved forward by an unseen force, and onto the bench. I didn't want to, but I felt powerless against such a monster. I got lucky once, but that luck came to an end. I was trapped in the hands of this horrific thing until it decided to kill me or let me go. I hoped it was the latter. But I figured, I'd at least hear what he has to say. If he tried anything, I would run as quickly as I could and fight until my dying breath, even if I did look crazy in front of everyone around me. So, what exactly have you heard about me? I gulped, trying not to sound as anxious as I felt. I was too afraid to even look at him, but he clearly wanted an answer that he knew I had. I know you're the Thin Man. Yes. That is what they call me. They think they are so clever. I also heard you don't talk much. To the others. They are boring. They have no substance, no depth, not like me. The only thing they have is the train. But you, a corporeal, you are fascinating. I've seen a few of you in my time, and almost each one met their end. Some are possessed, some are haunted until they die, others are taken. But not you, not yet. And what's stopping you from doing that to me? He let out a roaring laugh. It was almost human, but it was spliced with what sounded like metal scratching and ripping fabric. Following his expression of amusement, I saw him reach out his finger, and it grew until it grazed my Adam's apple. I'm bored. I've grown tired of simply devouring. I want to watch you wiggle and squirm in my presence. I want to see you barely get away. I want you to fear me. I decided to bold and ask another question. How come you can step outside the train? He laughed again, apparently finding my thought process entertaining. I can move freely around this station. My form is much stronger than any specter you'll see around here. They're confined because they are weak, they don't give in to what they can truly become. My head was spinning. If he could move my body with just the beckoning of his finger, there's no telling what else he could do if he really wanted. There could be nothing stop him if he decided to rip my head clean off, or take over my body and use me as a meat puppet, or whatever his twisted mind could think of. Truth is, corporeal, you amuse me. So many others run, if they had the chance. But you came back. You actually came back. That was a nice trick, by the way, pretending you were on the phone. But I have seen you, and I know when you're talking to someone alive and someone who is not. Speaking of which, you wish to help this girl, whom you've just met. Now that is something I want to see you try. I will make you a deal, corporeal. You can help this girl, and all others who you meet on this train. I'll give you 1 week's time. I will not interfere, I will not cause trouble. If you cannot save them, I'll devour your soul. I'll use your body and throw you onto the tracks. I'll feed on your fear as you beg for mercy or death or whichever you prefer. And if you try to run away. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something black and rectangular. It had accents of gold, it looked like some type of writing on it. He handed it to me, and my hands were shaking. Through the thick vapor of my cold breath, I read the object he gave me. It was an address plaque. My address plaque. The one that sat above my door for almost my whole life. I may not be able to leave the station, but I have friends in other regions who know exactly where to find you. I felt the breeze of the next train careening past us and the announcement of the next stop. The doors were filled with bustling crowds squeezing in and out of this public transportation system. The Thin Man stood up without a stumble in his step. What perfect timing, this is where I get on. See you soon. And remember, I'll be watching. He slid past the commuters and into the car, and I stared as the train took him away. He entered his domain, and he ruled over it all. I was just his plaything in a game just to keep him entertained. I really did want to help Zoe, but now it seems I have no choice. "Are you okay, sweetie? You've barely touched your food." I snapped out of my trance. I'd been zoned out for hours since yesterday. I honestly didn't remember walking through the door, going to bed, waking up, or even sitting down at the table. I looked down at my pot roast, then to my fingers unconsciously tapping at the plate, then back up to my mom. She honestly looked more confused than concerned, my face clearly showing something was wrong. "Sorry Ma, I just don't have much of an appetite right now." "Alright then. But you know I feel about wasting food around here. I'll pack it for lunch tomorrow. Promise." She got from the table and started clearing the table of her dishes and brought them to the sink. I followed suit and brought my plate into the kitchen, setting it down on the counter as I looked through the cabinets for something to dump my leftovers in. "Hey Ma, you ever wanted to do something for someone, but then started having doubts if you could actually do it?" "That's oddly specific, but yes I have." "Why? Are you in trouble?" She lingered on that last word for a few seconds, leaning against the sink and staring at me like she was trying to interrogate a crime out of me. I finally found a small Tupperware container and began to scrape the rest of my dinner into it. I wanted to be honest, but not too honest. No, it's just, there's this girl." Her face immediately changed. It was like I flipped a switch that all moms have, in which they think the mere mention of a girl might as well mean you're planning on proposing. I immediately shut her down, and told her I just met this girl. I told her I wanted to do a lot for her, but I wasn't sure if I could be what she needed. She chuckled, and told me she was hearing quite the familiar story. "When I met your father, I wanted to give him the world. Then he said I love you too and everything started to seem impossible. I doubted myself and my abilities. But if you're determined enough, it's something you just figure out as you go. Oh, time's already flying, I better leave for work." My mom works as a nurse at the ICU, oftentimes at night and occasionally double shifts. She always tries to have dinner before she goes, just so we can spend some time together. I appreciate the effort, considering we don't get many moments after this, especially after my dad died. It happened when I was 8, but it still feels like yesterday because she never stops talking about him. "I'll see you in the morning. Get some rest, okay?" "I will. Night, Ma." I wouldn't be keeping this promise. I knew if I even tried to get some shut-eye, I'd sleep through the night. And time is something I can afford to waste. She walked out of the front door, and as soon as I saw her car pull away, I went and drank almost 3 cups of coffee to try and stay awake. I got my bag, and packed it with a journal to take notes, as well as snacks because who knows how long this would take. After all, I'm meeting the family tonight. I waited in the almost deserted station until I felt the breeze of the train sweeping past me. The doors opened and I stepped inside, looking at my watch. The time was 10:03. I looked up and around and there she was, near the back of the car, staring out into the void. I'll be honest, Zoe's beauty still catches me off guard. I shuffle to her, hoping she's as glad to see me as I am her. My heart actually skips a beat when she looks at me with those bright green eyes. For a second, I forget every problem I've got. No mom overworking to make ends meet, no stress over school and friendships, no creature threatening my very life and soul. For a second, everything is okay. "Glad to see you made it." "Yeah, you too." She raised an eyebrow at my ignorant response. Of course she made it, she's stuck here. She can't leave the train, idiot. I almost start to stammer to correct my words, but she starts to chuckle. Funny. Real funny. She didn't catch on, she thinks I was joking. I go along with it, somehow making her laugh for the second time. It's nice to not have to pretend I'm talking on the phone, since there's barely anyone on the train and they're all in the front cars. We talk for a bit, swapping stories of funny stuff we saw during the day, and different things we would like to do if we had the chance. It was actually really refreshing. After a bit, we were met with a small silence, which she broke fairly quickly. "So, are you ready?" I nodded. Zoe led me to last the car and the train, but stopped before we entered and looked at me nervously. Now, just for a little context, everyone who's stuck on this train meets here around the same time every night. They'll probably ask you a bunch of questions, so be prepared for that. But they're nice, I promise. As we walk through the door to the final car, I'm greeted with the sight of a small group of people sitting in a somewhat circle in the cul-de-sac of seats. First, I saw a pale, middle-aged, plump man in a dark blue suit with a fedora to match, and a light blue tie. He was compulsively flipping a weird-looking coin. Next was a woman with a light brown sweater and pink skirt, probably around the same age as my mother. She was adorned with large, curly afro. Then, there was a skinnier man wearing a leather jacket with more pockets and pins than I could count, but he was standing and holding the bar rather than sitting comfortably. He looked like he was in his late 20s at most. Finally, there was a little girl. She couldn't be older than 6. She had long brown hair and was wearing a super expensive looking violet parka. She was sitting in the center playing with a white horse toy with a purple tail. My heart broke a little bit, wondering what could have happened to such an innocent child, and how she could fathom being stuck here. Zoe cleared her throat to get everyone's attention, and the car went silent. Everyone turned their eyes to me, ironically, like they've seen a ghost. The plump man stood up, and addressed Zoe. "Is this him?" Zoe nodded as he continued to stare at me with fascination. "I haven't seen one of your kind in so long. My name's Percy." The lady with the afro spoke next. "I'm Claire, it's nice to meet you, young man." I looked at the guy with the leather jacket, expecting him to greet me. He looked me up and without a care in his face, and after a few seconds he told me his name. Dex. Short for, I don't really know. Percy pointed to the little girl. "That's Julia over there. Julia, come say hi to our new friend." Julia slid off her seat and skipped toward me. Everyone looked kind of exhausted, just barely hanging on. But Julia had such a cheery nature to her. "Hiya, mister. Are you stuck on the train too?" Her question caught me off guard. I didn't want to rub being alive in her face, but I also didn't want to lie to her. No. I'm not, sorry." "What are you sorry for? I'd say you're pretty lucky." She was right. Everyone here was bound to an eternity, roaming the same place over and over, day after day. No memories, no answers. Just an endless cycle, in which all they had was a one-way mirror into the world. To see but never to be seen. This doesn't look like hell, but it may just be the closest thing. And if I don't hurry, it's a fate I will soon share. While you're here, you want to play with me? Though, I only got my one horsey, but we can share. Hey, sure. That'd be nice. I followed Julia back to her seat and sat next to her. Claire crossed her legs and bared a weak but genuine smile. "So glad you finally decided to join us again, Zoe." Zoe chose not to say anything back, her gaze shifting to her feet. Percy, sitting in the seat adjacent from mine, gave me a friendly elbow. "We meet here all the time, but you must be pretty special for her to come." Dex scoffed, catching us all a bit by surprise considering he's been so quiet all this time. "She probably thinks she's better than us or something. Newsflash, we're all stuck in the same boat." "Actually, it's a train." I figured a joke could help lighten the mood. Percy bellowed at my corny joke, and Julia giggled quite a bit. I even got a chuckle from Claire and Zoe, the latter giving me a face that said that's such a dumb joke but I'll laugh anyway. The only one with zero reaction was Dex. "Lighten up, Dex. If Zoe doesn't want to join us all the time, she doesn't have to." Percy shifted his focus to me. "I like you, kid. Now, down to business. Zoe says you're gonna help us?" Everyone's ears perked up, and stared at me with a type of hope I've only seen in fiction. It felt like a lot of pressure was on me to fulfill this promise, for their sake and for mine. I told them everything, about meeting Zoe and about my encounter with the Thin Man. However, I did leave out the part of our deal. I'm not really sure why, it just felt disingenuous if I told the main motivation was just to save my own skin. Hours passed, I tried asking everyone questions about what happened in their lives, but just like Zoe, all they could remember was their names. With practically nothing to go off of, I had no idea where to even start. My thoughts were soon interrupted by a large yawn coming from Julia. "I'm tired. Mister, could you take me to the front of the train?" "The front?" "Yeah. I can hear the engine way better up there. It helps me sleep better." "Okay, if you say so." I walked in front of her to lead the way, but she stopped and looked at me while rubbing her eye. "Actually, can you carry me?" I looked over at the others to see if it was okay with them, with which Percy gave me a reassuring nod. "Don't worry, she'll be fine. We'll see you tomorrow, kid." I sighed with a soft smile as I stooped down for her to hop on my back. She handed me her horse toy so it wouldn't fall, so I stuffed it in my jacket pocket for safekeeping. I carried her all the way to the front car, Zoe walking right next to me. It's so late, it's deserted, not a single soul except for the two right by me. As I laid Julia on the comfiest seat I could find, Zoe I watched as she drifted off. "So, do you guys really need sleep here?" "We don't need anything. We can do it, but it's never really necessary. Well, most of the time." Zoe's smile faded as she brought her eyes to mine. He's watching you, isn't he? The thin man? She's figured me out. I wanted to play dumb, pretend that this something 100% from my heart. But it's not. I've got a week to help you, and everyone else, otherwise he's gonna devour my soul. I'm sorry, I should have said something. I really do want to help. Zoe rushed up to me with a hug. I could hear a slight trembling in her tone. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this. I hugged her back, a part of me never wanting it to end. It's okay, we're gonna figure this out. I'll stay with Julia, make sure she's good. The speakers blast as we've made the round trip back near my house. I step out, and once again make the trek home. I figured maybe the best way to help them move on from the purgatory that is this train is to help them remember something. However, I felt hopeless, not even having a single clue to help me out. Stumbling into my room, I threw down my bag, took off my shoes and jacket feeling defeated and exhausted. I was about to throw it in my hamper until I felt something with a small weight. My pockets were empty the whole night. Except when no. It couldn't be. I dug through my pocket until I pulled it out. To my utter disbelief, there it was. Julia's white horse toy. I had grabbed something that she had with her in her spiritual realm and made it physical when I took it with me. I took it outside of the train.